Welcome to the Bullseye Breakdown, the podcast where CEOs, founders, and leaders of industry break down big decisions, big wins, and big lessons. No fluff, just real talk. Let's get into it. This is the Bullseye Breakdown. All right, welcome back to the Bullseye Breakdown. I'm your host, Dustin Weaver, and today we've got a killer episode lined up. My guest is Kyle Smith, co-founder of Strata Cloud Accountants. Kyle's not just a numbers guy, he's a strategic finance pro who spent years helping small and medium-sized businesses get their money right. He's worked in the trenches as a controller, led finance at Cella's Brewery, and even built out teams at a fintech startup. Now, with Strata Cloud, he's helping business owners make smarter financial decisions so that they can actually grow instead of just getting by. We're going to talk about his journey, some financial pitfalls businesses fall into, and how you can set yourself up for long-term success. So let's get into it. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Super excited to be here, Dustin.
I'm super excited to have you here. How are you doing today?
Doing great.
Good. Well, we appreciate you taking the time to be on the show. Before we get too far into explaining what Strata Cloud is today, I'd love to take a moment to actually step back and hear a little about how you got to where you're at with Strata Cloud and maybe what made you decide to think about going down the fractional support route.
Sure. And I'll say first, too, I love the intro. And you said worked in the trenches. And that made me think because I definitely work present in the trenches, just not every day, all the time what I do. But I think my co-founders are the same way. We love kind of getting into it with our clients. So yeah, we're living it every day. I feel like it helps me stay sharp and kind of be on the cutting edge of what's happening, where things are moving. So excited for that. But yeah, a quick background. I started as a professional poker player as my kind of my school of hard knocks coming out of college.
As you do.
Yeah. I'm a CPA now, and most people, it's kind of surprising to them that I started as a professional poker player. But I learned some valuable lessons at the time. One, I was a finance major as well at UT, and poker is all about making or understanding risk reward. So I got a lot of experience understanding, what's a right decision, even if the outcome isn't what you wanted at that time, understanding that it was the right decision to keep making them over and over. And if you make good decisions, more good decisions than bad over time, you win money in poker. And business is the same way. You have to make good decisions over time and not get discouraged if it didn't work out in that particular case. Over the long run, you make enough good decisions and you can have a successful business. So I learned a ton. And at the same time, I was kind of moonlighting in poker, doing that semi-professionally. I also worked for a restaurant franchise group that was started by my dad here in Austin. And so I learned a bunch about restaurants and hospitality. And while I was playing poker, I realized if I win, somebody else has to lose. And if I lose, someone gets to win, but we can't all win. And it kind of wore on me. And I realized I wanted to go into something where I could help people. And so that's where I kind of got the entrepreneurial bug and decided I'd love to go the finance route. I went back to school and got my CPA and wanted to see if I could help small businesses. And so that led through a journey of working at a software startup here in Austin, where I was head of the onboarding team, and we got to onboard 30 clients a week, which was pretty. It was kind of like a fire hose, but I got to see all different industries, all different types, to go along with my hospitality experience that I had previously. And when we were there, my two co-partners and I, we decided, hey, let's start a business where we focus on the best service using the best tools, but we are servant leaders, and let's build a business where we can help other small businesses. And we started Strata Cloud in 2020 with that goal and that mission of helping clients become more profitable, and then haven't looked back since.
It's beautiful. There's a couple things that you said there that I really want to key on. One is that, you talked about that you have a very diverse background. You have a wealth of knowledge to be able to look at various different angles of various different industries and understand and maybe not know it, through and through, but being able to empathize and actually strategize with clients in their own space is huge.
especially when you're talking about numbers, right? Like numbers are faceless. That's kind of the universal language is math, but you have to understand how those numbers fit in. And I think that really gives you a leg up and is an awesome selling point to going with Strata Cloud, knowing that you have the ability to kind of not niche down into a specific corner to say, hey, we only work with car dealerships or, doctor's offices. When you can actually have a broader sense of things and a better understanding of how business works on whole, that's huge. The second thing that you said that was really, really cool to me and very, very much hitting home is being a servant leader, understanding that your clients really are your customers and that you are having to give the best customer service to them at a daily basis. That I think is something that, when you can actually ingrain that into your culture of your business, you can take whatever you're doing to the next level. Because at the end of the day, if I have two options in front of me and I know that one may cost $5 more than the other, but I know the thing that costs $5 more than the other has so much more heart and support put into it, I'm going to go and spend that $5 every time. That may not be the wise financial decision or poker decision, but I tell you what, it makes me feel better about the things that are in my day-to-day life. On the long term, I do think that those are probably the better decisions. And it leads us to now this path of where you have this product that you have come together with, where you have an idea of building out something where you can be supportive of your clients. You can be working towards the betterment of what they do. You form Strata Cloud. What was the next step there? Where did you say, okay, how are we going to make this work on grand scale in order to be the best that we can be to the greatest amount of people?
Yeah. Well, it's all relative, I would say. So we're not out to be an Amazon of accounting. So it's really the relative scale that we wanted to hit in our potential goals and what we realized early on. So we started as primarily a bookkeeping firm because that's super, super important. You've got to have the base numbers to make decisions. If you don't have good numbers, you can't make any decisions about the business. And most business owners are pretty intuitive, so they can make decent decisions. But a lot of the time, they're shunning the financial statements either because they don't want to look at them or they don't have time, and they're missing out on a lot valuable information. So that was our original mission and premise was let's do bookkeeping really, really, really well. And then we realized when we were meeting with clients on a month-to-month basis and that was the first thing is most bookkeeping companies probably aren't doing that. And so you might say, well, that's not really scalable, but it really is in a sense because we want to be on a set cadence where we're meeting with clients because otherwise there's not a lot of value is the first thing we found out that we want to meet with clients. And when we were reviewing the numbers, we found out that we were also advising. They were asking a lot of questions that we were providing answers for, and we realized we're doing a lot more than bookkeeping here. And the clients are getting a ton of value from us strategizing with them on the best ways to build the business. So that kind of brought us into where we are now, which is the full suite. So we have an amazing bookkeeping team of CPAs. And then what I do, my co-partner does, and we head up the CFO department. We're doing the higher level analysis and strategy with clients. And that was the light bulb moment because that's where our passion is. And when your passion's there, you can really show that to prospective clients and show the value. And then you can continue to grow because, like you said, business is business no matter the industry that you're in. So if you have good folks that understand the financials, it really doesn't matter as long as that business is in a certain realm in terms of its growth. We can be really valuable and helpful. And at the same time, on our side, we can scale that and make sure that we're providing that value to as many clients as we can.
Yeah, and you talk about hitting your passion and hitting your stride. Your 20%, as the 10x is easier than 2xers out there. We'll refer to, but it's so key. Once you can actually like sit in that space where you know that this is what you want to do, and you have the team to support all the ancillary issues, you can just fly. Part of why I'm so excited about talking to you today is because my company and what we do is very similar. We do marketing, like we do support and consulting in CMO, fractional strategy from that top level. And it is so rewarding to be able to sit with somebody who is in our position as well as a founder or a CEO and go through what their desires are and help them. It's almost like a puzzle, right? Like every single one of these people that we talk to, it's finding how to fit the pieces together to make the vision come to life, right? And bring that forward. And so I know exactly what you're saying in terms of like the joy that you can receive out of that in really getting behind, using your brain to find the strategies and help those players with their needs. Does that hit it right on the head, I would say, right?
Absolutely. And you hit on something as well when we were talking about scale. And the biggest one for us is overall, it's not staying in your shell, right? As a business, we want to move forward, and that means you go forward and you make mistakes and you learn. And what we've learned is that the most important thing to scale for us as servant leaders in a service business is personnel. So we have to have an expert team, and you've got to stay ahead of your goals on the revenue side for us and helping people side. So if we want to help people, we have to have experts that, let's put our money where our mouth is and let's get experts that can help people and stay ahead of the clients that are coming in. So that's the biggest one for us to scale is have the personnel that's ready to take on the clients that are good fits for us. And then we can keep our reputation, because that's the other thing in this business. We're only as strong as our weakest link, in the sense of if we have a bad client relationship, that can implode everything else that we're building. So it has to be, for us to scale profitably, which is key in a service business. We have to have a personnel team in place, which is what we did last year. And then now we're kind of filling that gap because we got ahead of it. But you can't go the other way, in my opinion. You can't have clients with nobody to help them. That's a worst case scenario. So that's a big, it just popped in when you're talking about scale. That's a big one for us, is having an expert team.
Well, let me pull on that thread for a second, because that's really intriguing too. Like, when you were talking about finding the right talent, and obviously you have a pretty high bar of who you're bringing to the table, because understanding the clients that you're working with and where you're going, it's very important to ensure that you can let it go from your mind to know without a doubt that they're going to be able to handle their end of the bargain. What's that process look like for you? How does the recruitment and the vetting process of these candidates come in? Is there anything that you've kind of found that works better than others?
Yeah, we kind of have a unique model, not to pull back the curtain, but
Pull it back.
yeah. So when we worked at the previous firm, we worked with a team in the Philippines, and they were part of a third party, and they would go 2 hours to work at a building where this third party worked, and they would go 2 hours home. We were working with them for 2 years. We identified one rock star person, and this was when we started the firm. And we said, we want to start with that person. They were a CPA. They had a ton of experience. They were getting grossly underpaid in our opinion. So we kind of burned the bridge with the company that we could have reached out to work with, and went directly to that person and said, hey, you can work remotely. We're going to pay a 2.5x of what you're getting now. And that there's no magic to that. High talent is attracted by better pay. And so that was our strategy, is let's not, when we're playing that game, let's get the best people and make sure that we're paying them, top of the market. And then from there, let them show their expertise. And
Yeah.
that's how we've grown the team from there. And
Yeah.
we've grown it from that one person, using that strategy of, we don't get, we're getting the top people only is our goal.
Yeah, and I tell you what, it's ironic that you say that. I I think a lot of people are now starting to realize that there are extremely talented people in the Philippines that are living at a cost of living that is much lower than the U.S. And so you can kind of utilize them as a talent pool and keep your costs down. Good, bad, or indifferent, I'm sure there's a lot of viewpoints on that. But personally, my bookkeeper is based out of the Philippines. I've got a video editor that's based out of the Philippines, and then I also have a web designer who is an American but lives in the Philippines. And it's an amazing pool of talent over there that is kind of unchecked, and on the higher scale of the education ladder, there is a lot of opportunity for amazing talent over there. So I think that that's brilliant by your standards to go and do that and build out that way.
Yeah. And it's played itself out. So you could say, you could like it or hate it, or, talk about it on a macro view. With us on the micro view with clients, there's been time and again where our team has come in and replaced, it's been unplanned, but we've replaced a bookkeeper or bookkeeping team. And that's not, then the bookkeep, because a lot of times with smaller companies, their bookkeeper was the hired to be the office assistant, and nobody else was there, and so now they're jumping into bookkeeping.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, I wasn't hired for this, so now we can come in with our team, do it the right way, scalable way, and that was the office assistant or a paralegal or whatever it is, they can go back to doing what they do best, or maybe they've upskilled and can work their way up the organization. So it's not a bad thing at all that our team can come in, do a better job, and that helps everybody. So that
Yeah.
it's hard to hate that when
No,
basically
exactly.
everybody's winning.
Well, and you touch on two things there. One, you get that employee back. And I've been in those situations. I actually have worked in those situations where you start building a company, or it's an older company that, like, there's new blood that comes into, and then you start growing something. And then it's like, oh man, we need this role. We're going to put you in this role. And I don't know why it is. It's always like the office manager becomes something to do with accounting, right? And I mean, I guess it makes sense, but invariably, like you said, they're maybe not suited for that role, and they're rock stars at what they do because they wouldn't have been given that role if they weren't. So you coming in, it allows that person to get their time back and have their job back. But then your model is so great because you grow with this company. So as that company grows, you can add assets to their team as you go through. And it's a symbiotic relationship, like you said, in the sense of you're both getting benefit out of the outcome, which is very nice. There's very few opportunities where scenarios like that are beneficial across the board for everyone involved.
100%. And not to toot our own horn, because this is a general theme with what we're doing. Business, so you have the VA or the office assistant that maybe was doing the bookkeeping. You have the business owner that's maybe overseeing the financials a lot of the time, playing the CFO controller role at the same time. And you hit on it, saving time and then being able to make better decisions. That's really what it is. That's why I would say you look into a fractional team, like what you do as CMO, what we do as CFO and bookkeepers. It's X of X sometimes of what you, in terms of your time, to be able to focus on the business. So you can have expert numbers at a nuts and bolts level and free up the admin team like we just talked about. And then at the owner level, now you're not having to troubleshoot on why the numbers don't look right. And you get an extra person or an extra brain to help you be more profitable, and you can focus on what you do best, which is growing the business on the revenue side, strategizing. And if you don't do it, you're limiting yourself against the competition. So to me, it's the people that do it have a huge advantage by building that team, because you can't go to 0 to 100. You can't have a full executive C-suite team from nothing. And so that fractional bridge is so critical during your growth phase, and you've got to commit to it sooner rather than later. And that's not just a pitch for what we do. It's look into it as a business owner, no matter who it is that can do it for you, but find somebody good to do it, because it's a massive, in my opinion, it's a massive mistake to get bogged down. As you grow, you're going to get bogged down in more and more of the nuts and bolts that you can't be focusing on, because you need to focus on growth.
Exactly. Now, and it alleviates so much stress at such a lower cost to the company too. That's the other massive thing, is being able to, like you say, bridge that gap from no C-suite to a full C-suite in a much more palatable, losing my words here. You're able to bridge that gap in a much more palatable way. You can get from point A to point C in a much faster transition than you would. And it's almost like maybe you're skipping a step and you're going to point F in that, because you're launching through that with the time that the owner, the founder, or the CEO is getting back to focus on that strategy and that growth development. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. Let me ask you something. Who are you actually really focusing on? Like, what's your sweet spot in terms of revenue for a company? Is it like $1 million to 50, or where do you sit?
Yeah, so our bookkeeping team and our bookkeeping arm, we work with folks that are pre-revenue in some cases, up through $30 million of annual revenue. And on the CFO side, we're usually coming in when a business is hitting the 2 million mark, maybe less depending on the business. And we work with businesses up through that 30 million mark. If you're above, it's always dependent on the industry, but if you're above 30 million-ish, sometimes below that, sometimes above, you might be looking at a full-time CFO. And to me, that's a huge win of, like, if we're the bridge, like I talked about, and now you need a full-time help, that's a massive win. But a lot of the times it's not just about the time, it's about the value. So we're really valuable with all of our clients, and so we can be valuable in that fractional space up to 30 million-ish.
I think that's a really healthy way to look at it. When you get to a point where you're going to lose a client because they need to hire somebody on full time, that is a win. That's like, from your standpoint, it's almost worth having like having a wall of fame of like, hey, we got them here. We have helped you to drive your business to a point to where you no longer need us. It's like being a parent,
Exactly.
Like, go to college, but go to Texas. That's the only option.
Absolutely. Yep.
So anyway, hook 'em. So, well, cool. Exactly. Yeah. I just think that the way that business is moving now is well, post COVID, the way that business is moving is really much more an acceptable methodology of growth and development, because the necessity for people to be in office is so much lower. And, the acceptance of having video conference meetings is so much greater. And I think that we will see that continue down the road. And like you're saying, if anybody actually does some research on it, it is an excellent way to get by it. Let's move into the section of the podcast we like to call the pressure test. I want to just ask you a few questions right now that are really pointed to get to the bottom of what's going on in your world and get you thinking in a manner of all the things that you go through on a day-to-day that really make a difference in how your day ends up. So let me ask you, in this transition and in this movement from being a professional poker player, Kyle, to now working in the world of finance, what's been the hardest decision as you were going through this process?
It's always hard to quit. I quit the poker dream in my early 20s, so I'm trying to remember back, but that's the hardest part of the process. But I actually listened to something recently where they were talking about making a pivot, and to make a pivot, you can't just jump blindly a lot of the time for various reasons. So the advice was build a bridge, and then once you build the bridge, walk across it. So meaning take small steps to what your goal is, and then at some point you've got to make the leap, or you've got to walk across the bridge, and you're probably not going to be comfortable doing it. That's what I would say is the hardest part, is really just getting those initial steps. So you can't, the old cliche, you just got to take it one step at a time. That's really it. Because if you get overwhelmed, like starting if I would have really thought about what we were doing, it might have been overwhelming. But if we took just chunks and set initial goals, like, hey, our goal is to help 10 new clients the first year that we're in business, and really help them win and show a return on their investment with every client. That's all we're going to do the first year, and focus on that, and focus on our mission, which is helping clients. Then it becomes a lot more manageable. And then if for some reason it's not working out, you can adjust and pivot from there. But you have to move forward one step at a time, and don't get intimidated with a big end goal, whatever that may be. Set intermediate goals, build the bridge, and then do it.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. I say to my team all the time, we're building the bridge as we're walking across it. Like, I think to take that one step further, you literally have to be always moving forward, because at some point that bridge might need to make a left turn. And, if you're stuck on the edge of the bank building that bridge, then you're not going to be nimble enough to make that turn. So it's a really good analogy and some great visualization there to lead us into the next question, which is like, was there a mistake that you made early on that you have been able to learn from in that whole process?
Tons of mistakes. Yeah, for sure.
You mean yesterday?
Yeah. I'd say the big one is over-focusing on a framework of delivery, meaning we needed to focus more on client outcomes for us. So it's what we thought it was going to be, because we're all accountants. So when we started 4 years ago, we didn't have my two co-partners and I. None of us had entrepreneurial expertise or background. This was the first leap for all three of us, and so we thought, hey, let's just do really good accounting work and produce the reports every month, give it to the clients, and off we go. And it's really the opposite. It's how much change can you affect at the client's business. And looking, that's what we do now, is what's ways that we can affect change. And if we are helping the client, then let's do it. If we're not, then that's not something we should do. So recognizing that early on is something we didn't do. So we probably wasted a lot of time just not really providing value in some cases. That's the biggest one. So you made a great point of pivoting, right? That's really what we didn't do well at the beginning, was learning what worked and pivoting quickly. We're learning to do better now.
There's a lot of parallels between you and I. It's very intriguing to say that. And I understand what you're saying. It's like, when you're providing a service and you are selling a service, because that's indeed what you're doing, you have two options. You can sell the service and say, hey, this is what the service is. What I love about what you just said right there is you realized that that is a faceless opportunity with a client. You're going to be behind the curtain, plugging away at numbers. They're going to see the report and it's going to be like, great. Thank you. I appreciate this. But when you take the opportunity to get with the client and say, hey, we're going to work towards this outcome. We're going to give you a tangible ROI on our services. You are going to see how we're working in a method that is going to move your needle. It blows clients' mind. Because you're taking that extra step, you're going that extra mile, and it really is just such a fresh breath of air to most CEOs or founders when you're coming at it, looking at it in a mindset that is entrepreneurial to their business. They feel like they're getting another one of them in their business. And, you and I both can understand how refreshing that could be. So I think that is an awesome pivot. It's a great way to go. So
Yep.
That's amazing.
And using, like you said, the tools. So we have to spend time with the clients. Like you said, that's the whole reason that we're doing it. And that's how we're valuable. That's why the clients think we're valuable. That's how we get new revenue for our business. And it's our job to use the tools to the best of the ability to be as efficient as possible and affect that change as efficiently as possible. And the tools are so much better than they were even 10 years ago across all disciplines, but especially in accounting and finance. Just quickly, when I started out in accounting, I did one job, which was enter sales from a point of sale system into the accounting system, 8 hours a day. And now that's something that's automated that nobody does. And so I can take my skills and help other small business owners. And our company, we can help teach other folks that are working for us to do the same thing. And that's a scalable win. That's the whole reason we started the business, is like, hey, we're in kind of maybe a 1 in 40 or 50 year event here of efficiency. So let's use it and then spend the time helping clients be more profitable.
I like that, and I've started referring to this as the efficiency revolution. With the advent of AI, and what you just said there is a really good example. Excuse me. With the advent of AI, and what you just said there is a really good example where you have somebody that's doing data entry. You can set up a workflow now that is completely handled. No one needs to deal with that. But I tell you, there are so many businesses out there that don't understand that, and that they don't get that is even a possibility. And this is only things that have really come up in like the last 18 months as a possibility to be entered into on general business. But to your point, those data entry specialists are going to be something that is a dinosaur very, very quickly. And the faster that you can bring that value added information to your clients to get them into that, you are filling up their gas tank with nitroglycerin is what you're doing. You're allowing something that has been stagnant due to menial labor tasks to really flourish and have the opportunity to grow, because you're removing the time wasted on that. 40 hours a week entering data, both mind numbing and, wasted, gone, is amazing. And most of the time, those situations, the programs that do all that stuff is free. You don't even have to pay anything for it. Or it's, minimal cost. We're talking like $50 a month for a ChatGPT login. It's intriguing, but that actually pivots us very well to talking about scaling and how you can scale with what is going on. I'd love to hear from you, Kyle, how technology is changing in your business and allowing you to both scale others, your clients' business, as well as your company as it's coming about.
I'll give the client example first and then can talk about our business. So we had a working with a client and we're scaling for us very rapidly right now, growing. So super, super excited and helping new clients. And we have a client and we see these clients all the time. It's a cutting edge business in terms of what they do, but their accounting and finance is not cutting edge. It might be 10 years behind. And when I see that, like you said, the nitroglycerin, that's where I get super excited because I was like, hey, we can jumpstart this thing really fast. We can pull some levers and get numbers to where, the business owner's making decisions on like a 60-day lag on the financials. Let's get it down to where we're soft closing and getting financials after 4 days of the period end. And so we go from 60 to 4, and then from there we can start weekly dashboards. And so we're making decisions and pivoting on a weekly and daily basis instead of waiting 60 days to after the end of the period, which is effectively like a 90-day lag. So that's how we're helping businesses scale in a lot of cases, just like you mentioned, is they're not to where the industry is in terms of using the cutting edge tools and then having the analysis to be able to do it. So how that kind of correlates to how we're focusing on scale. And once again, we've made every mistake in the book in terms of growth and scale. Maybe not every mistake in the book, but we're only 4 years old. But we've made a lot. It feels like we've made a lot of mistakes, and we've learned a lot, though. And where we really are now is focusing on the bookkeeping arm because that's so critical. Having the nuts and bolts for any business that we work with.
It's foundational.
Exactly. It's foundational, and it's also scalable in the sense that you do it right or you do it wrong. So we're very focused on doing it right and growing that side of the business because a lot of businesses just need that foundational support to be able to make decisions about the business. And then we add on our piece. Um, this when I say our, my co-partner and I, who run the CFO department, we add on the advisory piece to the top of that, knowing that we've got really good numbers. And as businesses move from needing just bookkeeping to needing controller and CFO, that's when our team can come in and continue to help them scale. But we're also able to scale in that we can help people, a lot of folks on the bookkeeping side, kind of less if you're thinking of a pyramid on the CFO side per client for each person necessarily, but we kind of know where those boundaries are now to make sure that we're providing a good experience at all levels. And the idea is that we have a big base of bookkeeping clients that we're crushing it on. And then as those clients grow, we have a subset that we're providing the strategic support and the guidance to be profitable.
Do you have a cap on that for the CFO?
I personally do. Yes, absolutely. And our team does as well, because it's not just time, it's value, obviously,
Right.
but time is a piece of it. You can't expect to work with 50 clients, or even in my case 10 clients, and be able to affect change like I want to. So that's why we've realized that and been honest with ourselves, or try to continue to be, and say, like, what do I enjoy doing on a day to day, and where can the business scale, and where is it harder to scale, and see if we can still get to our goals as a business by doing those things. If we can't, then we'll go back to the drawing board, which we've done before. But I personally really like the way this model is going because we're seeing a lot of success with clients and we're getting to do what we want to do
Yeah.
as well on the business side.
And the reason why I asked that is because we're running the same business in different industries, and we're at the same scenario. We want to cap who we work with in a growth partner methodology out to maybe 15 clients, because we want to make sure that the value is given to those clients. Because a lot of the times we have skin in the game on these accounts. And so we want to make sure that from your standpoint, and like the understanding there of like the value of your time and the effort that you can put into moving their needle, if you start taking on 20, 30 clients, that diminishes it just greatly over time. So then that brings up the question, all right, you have a cap on it. You have capped yourself to where you can't get past X, Y, or Z with your current staffing scenario, right? In the CFO vertical of your business. How do you look to scale that? What's your thought process for 3, 5, 10 years down the road? Because obviously I know you want to grow the business. And from a revenue perspective, yes, while the bookkeeping is really churning and growing and building a pretty constant MRR there for the revenue, I would be willing to say that the CFO revenue is almost comparable to that amount, if not slightly higher, maybe when you're bringing that in. And so that really is probably your highest revenue generating vertical. but you're limited in how many elements to that you can bring in. So how do you look to scale that?
Yeah. And for us right now, it's probably 50-50. Don't have all the answers on how to scale it now, but I know where we don't want to be, which is actually a pretty important thing to know because you can kind of narrow down your vision and where your direction is for us, which is we know that we don't want to try to scale a large enterprise style in-house engagement with a client that would be close to like a full-time CFO relationship, which we have some now, and I work with a few that are like that, and I love it because that's what I love doing is working with those clients. That doesn't really scale, in my opinion, because you'd have to get someone at least as good or better than me, which I know there are people out there better than me, but I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is it's probably hard to scale that type of a business that requires that higher level consistently. So we're developing a model that where we can help more of our bookkeeping clients that are coming from the just needing bookkeeping to now you really are needing a controller level into kind of CFO level. And when I say CFO, we're talking about forward-looking items. So that's budgeting, forecasting. If you think about bookkeeping, that's making sure that what happened in the past is accurately represented so you can make decisions on it. What we're doing as CFOs is forward-looking. So we're developing a framework that can we help those clients that maybe certainly don't need a full-time CFO, but they need a budgeting. They haven't had it before. They need a forecast. They need scenario analysis because they're growing and they haven't had any of it before. That's where we're coming in earlier on in the relationship with a more valuable package for them. We can scale that on our side too because we can teach our folks those tools and those deliverables more easily and then still provide that amazing value to the client. So that's what we're developing now is and there's a lot of people at the higher end of the game as well that are doing, those bigger engagements. So that's where we're kind of focusing on where can we, I hate to say entry level because it's not at all, but it's just more a packaged CFO offering that still provides the value for a client that may not be able to afford it otherwise.
Yeah. And I get what you're saying there in terms of like entry level. That's not the term that you'd want to use. It'd be more something like, what is a better term there? Maybe like a introductory or,
You're the marketing guy. So yeah, go back, give me when
I'm
you have it,
missing an
please send it over.
opportunity here. Yeah, let me think about that. I'm going to come back to you on it. It'll pop in my head in like 5 minutes and I'll just blurt it out and you'll be like, what? No, that's honestly though, that's a really good breakdown of how you see scaling because ultimately you want to make sure that your product is the best product that you can bring to the table. And that also eschews us into a great opportunity to shift into talking about the market edge. What is one thing that you are doing in your space that really just completely pushes you above and beyond any of your competition?
I think we talked about it, or hopefully I've emphasized it as it's client first for us and scale second. So we've learned, we've had opportunities probably in the past to scale where we've said, is this hitting our mission of putting the client first? And the answer at the time was no. So that's what I think separates us, to be honest, is our mission one is client first. Mission two is scale. Mission one isn't fulfilled, we're not going to scale. And we can live with that. But we certainly want to help as many folks as possible. And we're very interested in scaling, but it has to be client relationship first. And the reason I say that, it just opens up lots of possibilities for the client. So I helped, on a scope of work, we don't have a part where we talk about negotiating with a payroll company, but I love negotiating. So I negotiated with a payroll company recently for a client. We helped them save $14 a person, which to them was 45 grand a year. That's the kind of stuff that gets us excited. That's why we'd have an advantage. We'd have an advantage over anybody else that's doing fractional CFO work because that's the kind of stuff that we love doing.
I love that. And ultimately, like when you do put your client first, people talk in the industry. Your clients have other friends who are business owners, and to be that type of a provider, to be that servant leader, you are really putting yourself in a position that even if you're not scaling at a speed in which you think you should be right now, I think that the return on that is exponential because the development that you get and the reputation that you build will continue to build and steamroll and roll downhill to where when it does actually come to fruition and pay out, it's going to be so much greater than if you were to maybe not put as much effort into your clients and then work towards scaling at this moment. So I think what you said right there, I concur with wholeheartedly, and I think it's a great way to go about it. So, all right, well, let's move on to the Bullseye Breakdown. And this is a point of the podcast where we like to see what trends are happening in the industry and what you really see as the future of how your industry is moving. With that, I think that you guys are already on the cutting edge of understanding the accounting space. What other aspects of your industry do you see changing rapidly that you are keeping an eye on?
A big one, and hopefully, because everybody says AI, I can give a specific example of AI that I got from an engineer who's definitely on the cutting edge. I met with a couple of weeks ago, where I think it's going to go. So right now we're using like ChatGPT. Is if somebody gives us a client gives me a 200-page lease and says, can you look at the part where it talks about our TI allowance and make sure that we're getting that and we get it booked correctly and we're realizing the 250 grand that we're going to get. Normally, I would give that to an analyst on our team and say, hey, can you look through this? And then maybe they look through it for 30 to 45 minutes and they find the spot, or maybe even 15 or 20. Now you can feed that into ChatGPT and it spits out exactly what I want it to. Finds a section, spits out the details. On the same, if I'm talking to the person on the phone, they call me up, I can shoot them an email or text them as we're talking, like the details. That's super valuable. And it's small, so maybe it saves 5 hours a month for our team, but that's still pretty huge. And it's a big value add for clients to be able to respond in real time like that. So I get a lot of questions on like loan rates if we're financing. What's the difference between this rate that this bank's offering and this bank that this, is offering? I can type that in real time and sound like really, really smart. That's really valuable to us as well, and it's getting good information to the client. So, but where I think it's going, and I know lots of people are using it that way and lots of other creative ways. This engineer was telling me about the agent model that he was experimenting with, and he was using it to build a team of programmers. And when I say team, it's all different chat GPTs talking to each other as if they're other people, and their output was like a program that he was trying to write. And I was pretty amazed, and he was saying, in the future, you could probably use an agent as a trainer that's sitting right next to an analyst on our team or a controller on our team and is giving them information on the fly. So, and it's proactive. So it can be looking at financials so maybe our controller was tasked with putting 3 points of what the financials look like this month and sending it to the client. They can have an agent that's helping them out, maybe pointing 3 things out for them on the fly that they can go point to and start looking at without a prompt. So in the future, you're not having to feed in information to ChatGPT. It's sitting right next to you and it's looking at things and providing suggestions and also providing training. If you have a new person, it would be like the equivalent of shadowing. You could have an agent that would have all the knowledge of your company feeding that to you. So that's where I think it's going is helpers. I don't think I don't think we're going to have a team of bots that are doing our work and certainly not advising, but I think there's a definite opportunity for like an augmentation of brain power using ChatGPT over the next, I have no idea. Maybe it's next week. Maybe it's 5 years from now. That's the hard part of how fast.
You're not wrong. I think it's next week. Honestly, it's coming that fast. There's so many changes that are happening, and I just see it, rapidly. That to me is amazing. That would be so helpful and so beneficial to be able to have something like that. I honestly don't think we're very far off of something very, very similar to that in terms of being able to assist and utilize support to help train new hires or just it's acting as a calculator for math, right? It's there giving you the support that you are already looking for, and it's only going to be as good as you are using it to be there giving you the information that you need to then succeed or push forward or sound more intelligent or close a deal or save your client money with. And
Yep, exactly.
It's coming. I mean, it's already here. It's here. Yeah, which is cool. So,
and it's cheap. That's the most last thing I would say about it. It's unbelievable how affordable that type of technology is for us right now. I don't know what that'll look like in the future either, but it's pretty unbelievable because it's got its limitations, no doubt, but it really is a step forward compared to what we had in terms of, like you said, information assistance.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to do a quick anecdote here. I read The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz recently. And he talked about how Netscape, when it first came out, their cost was like $5,000 a year just to use Netscape. And, that's just the preamble to, Internet Explorer. It was $5,000 a year in the 90s. So think about, with inflation, how much it would cost today just to use something like that. Now you take
$10,000.
ChatGPT. Yeah, exactly. You take ChatGPT, which is on a business license, you're $60 a month. And that's probably one of the more expensive ones, to be honest. I think Claude's like $20 a month. And that, I don't know how you would make it more expensive unless, it can only get less expensive as AI is more integrated into more things. I mean, I think I just bought a new stove. I think that thing has AI on it. I'm a little worried, but cook my pizza and we're good. So anyway, well, cool. All right, let's move to the takeaway shots. Some closing final wisdom from Kyle Smith. If you could leave our listeners with one piece of wisdom about your journey in business, what would it be?
You alluded to it, Dustin, earlier. To be able to pivot in business and stay ahead, it's really don't let perfection be the enemy of progress. So mistakes will be made. Move forward. Don't worry about perfection. Focus on improvement.
That is a solid piece of advice. It's so hard to get bogged down on a day-to-day and worry that you're not going to produce something that is going to be effective or, what the client wants or is going to be deemed as acceptable by the general public. But the reality is 100% of nothing is nothing. That was a solid conversation. Big thanks to Kyle for coming on and dropping some serious knowledge about financial strategy for business owners. If you want to learn more about what he and his team are doing over at Strata Cloud Accountants, check out stratacloudaccountants.com. And as always, stay locked in, keep your sights set, and take your shot. I'll catch you next time on the next Bullseye Breakdown.